I hereby call to order nope, I'm back up. It is 3:38, Wednesday, May 24th, and I call to order the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Easter Thomas. Councilman Ford. Councilman Smiley. Councilman Warren. Councilwoman Robinson. Chair Carlisle.
Chair observes a quorum. Colleagues, today is the beginning of budget wrap-up. We've made it to the second quarter. So, joke. Today, we're going to try and focus on a couple of the wrap-up items. Solid waste is here, which we're going to start with, which I just apologize to Vice Chairman Smiley because I lied to him saying we were going to take up the City Council resolution first. But since we have Director Davis here, and this has been a hot topic, we're going to hear from him first. What I'd like to do today, or try to accomplish today, is talk about solid waste, have a brief discussion on Councilman Smiley's resolution, some of which is required to be discussed in the public, and I think some of which is not required. And we'll get into that a little bit. And then lastly, to start to go over this little bit of this wish list, start to make sure that we're defining it. We have, unlike other years, a significant amount of time in this year's wrap up. And so I've said this before, I don't want council members to feel like they're getting crammed down or pushed around or the boat is going to leave the dock. So my hope is that as we go over things, we're meeting less frequently for less amount of time, but enough time in between discussions so that you feel like you've got time to think over, review. For the first time, at least since I've been on, we have a significant amount of wish list items that have a heavy price tag that are going to require some serious consideration and discussion. And I don't want to rush that process. We've got second reading of the budget and tax fixing ordinance on the 13th, and then we're not having a final vote until the 24th. So again, I don't intend to rush us through the process. So just know that we may have a couple more wrap-up meetings, but I don't want them to go back to back to back to where people don't have time to think about what is a significant series of proposals from council members. So I hope you'll understand that, and we'll be reaching out to your EAs to find availability in the coming weeks. But I don't want us to feel like we're meeting every day and you're not having time to sleep on it, because we've got some big things on the docket. With that being said, we are going to talk about solid waste. Director Davis, your name and title, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon. Philip Davis, Solid Waste Director, 2081 Old Oak Drive, Memphis 38119. So what I have, just to tee it up, what I have is a presentation coming back to you guys about the solid waste fee. During the initial presentation, we discussed the needs of the division for performing services, improving performance of services, but also the council's desired to see how we're addressing some of the blight task force issues, as well as previous discussions that have been going on since the first of the year regarding the potential fee increase needed to accomplish some of these things. So that just tees up this presentation. So going to the blight and illegal task force blight and illegal dumping task force recommendations, there were 4 items that were specifically addressed to solid waste. Transitioning to a tiered solid waste collection fee based on the size and number of carts. Support for the Memphis City Council, for the City of Memphis to develop and enter into a regional solid waste plan with Shelby County. Creating a share the penny style program for solid waste fee revenues to go toward construction and operation of convenience centers, and eliminating the outside the cart bulk waste collection system as we know it, and transitioning to an on-demand bulk waste collection service where residents may utilize it 4 to 6 times per year. Residents would book in advance, calling in, paying online a bulk fee. So how we've addressed each one of these, I'm going to go through real quickly because I think we want to focus on options for the 4th and final item. So the tiered solid waste collection fee. So currently, the city ordinance allows customers to lease additional carts at $10 per month. FY24's options that I'm going to be presenting here shortly propose no change to this portion of the ordinance. FY24's options propose prioritizing enforcement for high-volume customers to lease the necessary carts for the waste they generate each week. Task Force Recommendation 2, supporting the development of a regional solid waste plan. There is an MOU between the city and county pending council approval. You should be seeing it June 13th during that council meeting. We have adopted the FY23 budget, and the proposed FY24 budget options include financial support for the regional solid waste plan with Shelby County. The planning will require a waste characterization study, which I've discussed before, which is getting a snapshot of what's in our waste stream, seeing how we can manage those wastes better. And then of recent note, TDEC has awarded us a $250,000 grant to support a waste characterization study and solid waste plan. So we've got state support in the efforts that the city and the county will be entering into. Task Force Recommendation 3, schedule bulk waste collection. Is that right? Share the pennies programs. The Share the pennies program to support convenience centers. So MLGW currently offers a bill rounding option supporting low-income home weatherization and repairs. I've spoken to MLGW, and they are currently monitoring legislation that would change or eliminate programs such as this. FY24's options that I'll be presenting in a minute include funding to establish a convenience center at our Ferris Fee facility near Lamar and 240. We have also applied for a US EPA grant to fund a convenience center open to citywide customers, but it also has a component for community recycling outreach, targeting the Klondike, Binghamton, Whitehaven, and Fraser neighborhoods. And we are also exploring other grant opportunities and partnerships to expand convenience centers. Task Force Recommendation 4, the final one, was the scheduled bulk waste collection model. So there's some issues that the Blight Task Force identified with our current collection system. Increased volume is being presented at the curb. Enforcement of those abusing of the system needs strengthening. And the speed and consistency of our collection also needs to be addressed. Our FY24 options will address these items in different ways. So, and this is just a graph to show you what that top light blue line is municipal solid waste, MSW. That's what's in your garbage cart. And that's remained pretty steady since 2013. That is not including recycling. That's just MSW going to landfill tonnage. Down at the bottom, that darker blue line, that's bulk waste. That's what's outside the cart, uncontained waste. And you can see in 2018 or so, we started this trend up. It appears that when you advertise that you will do it and you will do it well, people will dare you to fail. So we've seen a 240% increase over this period. And that volume, it appears to have leveled out, but it feels like it's going up. So, got a couple of options and to discuss with you. FY24 option 1. This is what the Blight and Illegal Task Force referenced. The FY24 option 1 contemplates a transition to an on-demand bulk waste collection service. No outside the cart would be allowed unless a request was made. Residents would book in advance by calling or going online up to 4 times per year. And customers who fail to schedule or exceed the allowed usage will be treated as a code violation, not via our court process, but through our tagging process that the solid waste division uses, which allows customers 5 days to remove. If they don't remove, then the division will pick it up and invoice the customer. If the customer does not pay that invoice, it will be charged as a special tax assessment on their property taxes. So in this option, there's a lot of information, and I apologize for some of these slides that are going to give you descriptions. I tried to break it down to the nitty gritty, but this is how my mind works. Yeah. So fee effective date, January 1, 2024. Service implementation by July 1, 2024. So there'd be no change in your card or recycle collection other than that fourth bullet, the overflow waste would go away. If you have overflow waste weekly, you need a second card. Or it needs to be scheduled in one of your 4 times per year collection schedules. Bulk collection allowance 4 times per year by appointment. Failure to comply would be tagging, if not paid, on as special tax on your property tax. A convenience center will be added at the Ferris View complex. This budget contemplates the infrastructure and staffing, 1 full-time employee, 1 part-time employee to staff it 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Holiday weeks, it would be Tuesday, like on a Memorial Day week, it'd be Tuesday through Saturday. Repair Bellevue Transfer Station. I know we've talked in the past about replacing it. Just the capital investment right there has been, and siting has proved to be a tremendous challenge. We figure, gotten some estimates that for maybe about $1.2 million, $1.5 million, we can repair it and buy us 7 to 10 years of life. What I have budgeted is $400,000 a year over the next 3 years. It'll probably take that long to repair one chute at a time. It's about $400,000 a chute. That's how it's modeled in here. Adding 311 customer specialists to 311 to handle the call volume that would come in with the scheduling is contemplated in this budget. Adding a collection outreach and enforcement section to the solid waste division. That's 20 full-time employees, 2 supervisors, 18 people in the routes, tagging, along with their 20, I have budgeted in here pickup trucks. But this would be folks to go around not only identifying code violations for collections for bulk waste, I contemplate them being able to help also clean up our recycle, identify contamination recycle cards, implement that. We've struggled with having crews be responsible for dumping the cart, but also stickering and educating the public on recycle. This also contemplates a implementation of a citywide communication education strategy. I've budgeted in here 3 years for that because I believe it's going to take that long to change behavior where this model is selected. This model minimizes our dependence on our unmanageable volume contractor, contemplates using them just during the heaviest times of year, a couple months in the fall, a couple of months in the spring to supplement our crews, and then finally reduce our overtime expenses. So this is what that model looks like. It looks like a 30% increase in our solid waste fee. That equates to $8.99 per month, making the rate go from $29.96 to $38.95. Note next to the sticker shock is the need for significant customer and employee behavior change. We also note that 2 convenience centers are planned in this, I'll remind you from earlier in the slide. And this does maximize our dependence, the reduction of our dependence on our bulk waste contractor.
Does anybody have any questions on option 1 general right now? Just because that's a lot to take in. The only one I had was just real quick. High volume customers, how do you define that on slide 3?
Currently, the ordinance says that waste shall not be presented, and I'm ad-libbing, but this is basically what it says.
Just trying to get it.
Waste presented at the curb should not be presented in a manner that requires the collection employee to make a second trip to the curb to gather the waste. Right now, I drive 3 trucks by houses. So the idea is we would identify those that are consistently putting waste week after week after, and we would deliver them a
To your
card.
point, it's defined by statute.
Yes, it
Okay.
is defined.
Okay, and then one more question, and then I've got Dr. Warren and then Councilwoman Easter Thomas. If the council chooses to support option 1, I know it's technically implemented, you're saying services in 7.1. Is that realistic and reasonable based on the amount of customer education? And I guess we're gonna have to find, maybe without saying it, a grace period. I mean, you're talking about a 6 to 12 month.
Right.
Changing habits is hard.
I mean, and with all these, what we would need to start hit the ground running July 1 of this year. So we're ordering equipment, we're starting to hire people. The idea would be to have everybody we need, these enforcement outreach officers on board January 1, the convenience centers open January 1, everything ready to go January 1, and use that January to July period to have those enforcement officers out there doing, I'll back up a little bit. In 2019, when we changed to the bulk waste model, there was a 6-month period, 4 to 6 month period that we were going to be putting blue tags on piles to educate, say, hey, this is not in the model that we've adopted. You need to stop doing this because come January 1, it'll be a violation. The implementation of that was not able to be realized fully because of COVID, basically. When COVID happened, those enforcement officers were retasked.
Understood. All right, Dr. Warren, if we could just try and keep them to option 1 questions.
I guess in option 1 question, does that mean we get away with our 5th area and we take that in-house? Is that what this is about?
Not in this option. This option would contemplate continue to outsource Area E. There is considered in this that we would have a lower rate because 4 times per year scheduled is a cheaper implementation than bi-monthly collection of bulk waste. But no, this option maintains Area E contracted.
But to Councilman Warren's point, so let me rephrase this. Is that $38 tied up in other capital expenses, or would that allow us to, when we take the RFP out, to have a higher? We got in trouble the last time because we got lean.
Yeah, this is, and I will say our previous budgets have budgeted less than $25, closer to $20 per home collection, knowing that it was north of 35 for us to do it in house. This option contemplates a $33 available rate for that.
And to actually receive the service model that the private sector can
But
deliver.
it still doesn't ever bring us to where we're bringing Area E in.
This option does not do that.
Okay.
It does allow, I think if you wanted to make the argument would be this allows us to bid out and pay the contractor more, which should in theory deliver better consistent service. We're
still not in charge of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue that
Understood.
is coming back and biting us over and over again. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. Councilwoman Easter Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Davis. Just a few questions on if you all, I'm sure you thought about this, but how did it go into thinking about option 1? Exceptions for holidays for bulk pickup. So like Christmas, when we know there's going to be plenty of stuff. Super Bowl, I don't know. Days where, holidays where you have, everybody's going to have bulk. Are there any thoughts about exceptions for, okay, we'll do bulk pickup on Christmas, on these days, on this day?
In this option, it would be scheduled. So were we to see an influx, a higher volume during those periods, we do have, be it reduced, we do have baked in here a supplemental contractor that can come in and help us during those 2 weeks or whatever that we may need that supplemental help.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also, do you think that this will push back on us with any dumping on nearby lots or nearby vacant houses? So like if on my street, I got plenty of stuff from whatever, kid had a birthday party, and I'm not driving to Ferris View. And that's my other question, where are the convenience centers? So I'm just gonna put it in front of this vacant house that's down the street because it's more convenient.
Right.
What's any thoughts around or anything that's being planned out about how to combat that? Because I see that as the first option, because I can't even name off the top of my head where a convenience center is for me to drop off bulk.
Right. And yes, there is going to be a need for dovetailing our enforcement, our outreach and enforcement group with the Public Works Code enforcement group. Those two groups will need to coincide. Currently, the ordinance says that solid waste shall not collect at locations that do not pay a solid waste fee. So we will have to bridge that gap with the Code enforcement group in Public Works.
I want to ask, I think Councilwoman Easter, I can ask your question a different way, because I'm not sure. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I guess is how did you arrive at 4 times a year, knowing that one of those is definitely going towards a Christmas holiday?
Right.
Right. Like, and
Right.
then you've got fall, whatever.
Right.
So,
And we haven't had time to do a survey, like a full survey of our customers for bulk waste collection, but I've been here a minute. So in 2016, we did do a survey of customers. We sent out about 12,000 surveys, about 1,300 of them came back. And there was a decent representation from all 7 districts. And what one of the things we addressed was, how often do you use bulk waste collection? And at that time, consistently, all 7 districts, 80% of our customers or more said 4 times a year or less. That's how they answered it. So that's how we came to 4 times per year. Now, you saw on a previous
That's what I
slide,
was gonna say.
240%
17
increase.
and on,
Yeah, maybe it's 50% now. You know, there is some research, and that is one of the things that gives me pause about this. I do believe that from keeping the city clean, if I could snap my fingers and have everybody comply, it keeps the waste off the street, which is what
we're ultimately
what we want.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that we often overlook, especially for Area E and others in particular, is as the rental housing market boomed and we had multiple families living in single family units, you've got this massive amount of trash. My kids I've got 3 kids and 2 dogs, and we can make it work, but you put another family in there and all of a sudden you can see how every week you're spilling out, which I think is probably another nuance. I'd be curious to know anecdotally if that's accurate or not, but I'd be willing to bet it's a player. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't hear all your presentation, but I got questions. Don't
Okay.
worry. Okay. First of all, what is the problem? Is it the size of out of the cot, or is it how often you have to go? Where is the problem?
The problem is volume. The problem is the volume, and then there is little to no enforcement of coming through. Like, we come through and clean up a street, and people are putting material back out right behind us. I have seen, not only contractors, but people that live in the houses will pile stuff at the curb as the truck. I had a complaint come in, and we dispatched a team from Team Waste, actually, and someone came, and as the grapple was loading, they came with a trailer, unloaded the trailer while the grapple was loading. He was there long enough that they were able to leave and come back with a loaded trailer again, so he could continue to load. And unfortunately, when that happens, that grapple was scheduled to be in somebody's Wednesday route. They weren't in Wednesday. They were at that location servicing that one guy that day. And there's 700 homes that didn't receive service.
Okay. So sometimes we have a tendency, you got bad players, but you make everybody pay for it. And we need to make sure that is not what's occurring here.
Right.
I think we're gonna need to put them stickers out there. They need to be a little bit larger, your little stickers, and you need to enforce it. Somebody, that's where the effort needs to be, enforcing that. You got a lot of people in-house helping people. I know that's taking place because I see huge, 3 feet wide diameters, and your trucks are out there picking them up. So you need to stop that. I think we need to address the bad individual, make sure they pay for it. If you see it, just put a bill on them right there. Either you get it up or this is your bill and we'll be back by a certain time. But I think, I hate to see everybody getting hit with an increase. And then you're gonna have so many people saying, I don't use it like that. That's not an issue I should be paying for. They need to work that out with the contractors, developers, or people cleaning out their houses, moving. I think that may be an issue we need to help. Now, you said on holidays, your supplemental help will come in. Are we gonna charge the individuals for that supplemental help on the holidays?
Again, the supplemental help would only be when our current crews, we are not proposing a reduction of force of any kind. Our existing crews would absorb all that work that they can, only when it was too much volume or came in too quickly. And I think to Councilwoman Easter Thomas's question was, the way I interpreted was about during a holiday week, if everybody called in one of their 4 times a year during that week, how would you handle it? Well, we would then have to activate the contractor. But one good thing about this, a good thing about this contract or this model is that when they call, we will know what the volume is, and I'll be able to say it's going to be 5 days. And what I've seen in this business is that if I can tell you when, you're okay to, you can stomach that. It's when I say I'm going to come twice per month on your collection day and then don't. That's when the frustration starts building.
Okay.
And they don't call until they're extremely frustrated.
They wait 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question you have on your page 9 in regards to add a collection outreach and enforcement section, solid waste. So like you adding, is that adding 20 vehicles?
That's 20 full-time employees and 20 pickup trucks for them to cruise around the city and identify violations.
I guess my question is, what are you gonna do with the current staff you already have?
This would be an addition, and right now, we don't have an enforcement staff.
Okay. I'm a little confused because you have a staff. Now you're going to reduce them down to 4 times a year per household. I'm wondering what's going to happen to the people.
No, I'm not proposing. I mean, I think there's going to be plenty of work for the existing staff to do this scheduled model. So I don't propose any reduction in force, reduction in the number of people collecting to what I have today. It's just the model in which we'll be doing it and how it'll be scheduled. Instead of giving someone a 7, or right now it'd be closer to 850 homes for 2 garbage routes to go and collect bulk waste and go on an Easter egg hunt, because I don't know who put it out today. I would be able to say, here is 75 locations that are scheduled for collection today. When you're done with those 75, come back in. We'll see what time it is and move along. So.
Okay, with this plan, I am too concerned about trash being placed on vacant lots or next door lots, whatever. That is a serious problem. But I mean, you need to be addressing it. How are you going to address it? I mean, do we do more PR on the front end and tell people to be out there looking out for these individuals? Do we contact vacant property owners and tell them to put some type of blockage across the front of your property? What's going to happen? Are they going to be charged if the trash is placed there?
Under the current ordinance, if it is a non-fee paying customer and it's presented at the curb for collection, we would tag it wait the 5 days,
Okay.
and then remove it
Right.
and the property owner. And these enforcement, I know there's been some discussion with me in the past about consistency of that tagging process. And this FTE group would make it so there is a consistent enforcement of that and documentation of that so that we can, that's part of the behavior change. It's
I
not,
got you, but that's what we need to be ready for because they're gonna come in here. People, the property owners
Right.
are gonna come in here screaming, I pay my property taxes. You know, again, we need help out here to watch these people, keep up with the kids, and keep up with the trash.
right.
You know, so I think you're gonna create an environment overnight where these individuals are really going to be finding a quick place. Maybe we need more convenience centers. I don't know, but that may be an answer versus just 2. Next question. You tell them you only got 4. How do they find people to pick it up for them? What are we going to tell individuals about? We can't do it anymore for free. Are we going to come up with some special rates for these individuals after you hit the 4th one?
I am not proposing getting in the business of creating a pay for collection service. The 4 times a year is the model because of the nature of how we're funded.
Yeah, but she asked a fair question, which
Right.
is if I need a 5th day, how much does it cost me? Is it about
Right.
the tonnage?
It
or-
would be treated as a code violation, and currently our way of assessing, they would receive a bill before it would go on the tax assessment, and the bill would be based on $100 a load, currently $100 a load, $175 an hour, or $100 a load, $175 an hour.
All right, let me
May I
give
come in here?
you a scenario of how that goes downhill.
Yeah.
I call all my neighbors and I say, bring your stuff down to my house. I'll charge you $15 a house, and I'm gonna end up making money because you just told me that I can get all the bulk picked up for $100. Yeah. ugh.
It's actually billed on the cost. So I'm sorry, may I join in? Okay, Shandell Ryan, Chief Operating Officer. Thank you. So back to your point, Councilwoman Johnson, we've had some conversations about, do we get to a point where after the 4th time, do we now say, well, if you have a 5th or a 6th time where you want to schedule someone to come out, whether we would build that into the model. So we can take that and look at that and see what that would look like. I think it's a possibility for us to
allow the
explore that.
private contractor. Tell them if you want a 5th pickup, you've got to arrange it through the private contractor.
And here are some options. And then to also answer a question that you mentioned earlier about the 2 convenience centers. So this would make it a total of 3. So there's one that Public Works has currently in like the central of the city. What is it on Collins? And so this would be out on off of Lamar. And then the other one is slated for like the North
Fraser area.
area. So that would be 3 that would be a part of this overall infrastructure, to answer your question.
Okay, I hear that. But I'm here to tell you, I live in an area where we got so many trees. And Memphis is full of trees. And we're always cutting down trees. Huh? Then I'm gonna say we're finna get into it. It may need to be. Mm-hmm.
Everywhere but mine. And every time you and a lot of others come here, they've named everybody's place but mine. You got some of the highest. I got a lot, and I got more land than anybody. Okay, some of y'all can get some of my land. But you know, I'm about to get pissed off today. Because like I said, always, except for mine, something that's supposed to have been done. Hell, I've been waiting a year. Ain't done. My area. It's 3. Come pick me up. Just said 2 also. This man, y'all loading up and where did he bring it from? From one house? No. If they
He's saying the guy who
brought
brought it.
house, why did they even let them put that? Okay? And if he kept on coming back and everything else, I blame the person that was picking it up. Real today.
Yes,
We need to go back to that person. Why did he even let him do that?
yes, sir.
And that's a great point.
Fourth area.
Yes, sir.
Every time y'all come here, it's 3 areas. This area, and hey, I'm tired of not our area.
I'm with you.
Right this minute, but hey, anybody else come up here, I'm gonna be on you too, because you know, I'm kinda tired of my area. And I've been asking and help. My area is represented by 4 council members. Wake the hell up the next 3 now. Represented by 4. 4.
Is that
Chair, may I?
Yes,
excellent?
ma'am.
May I
Okay.
respond? Okay, once you.
You may continue.
Councilman Ford, you bring up an excellent point about the situation that happened, and that's where these 20 FTEs will help to support that enforcement effort, number one. Number two, about the convenience centers, we're happy to look at that neighborhood. The only reason that we were able to put another one on Lamar is because we already have a solid waste facility there. So it was just turning that light on for that particular facility at that location. So we have an operation at Collins Yard, and so we just turned a piece of that property into, what's it, 30?
It's between Poplar and Sam Cooper on Collins Street.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing here is just, again, we've talked about a 4th one. We need
Yes.
county commission approval. We got to get working on that. But I think,
We need as
We hear
many
you.
as possible
Right.
to tell the truth.
That's
If
right.
we go to this, now, first of all, let y'all make sure you understand, I believe that's gonna need a change. Something needs to happen. Now, how we do it, I think that's gonna be so important to make sure it goes off regardless of what model you use. And I don't know if you want to implement everything at one time. It could be a possibility we deal with the trees. Okay, tree people, henceforth, this is what we're gonna do. Then you go out after the developer. You throw all that trash out there. This is what we're gonna do next. You know, get people becoming accustomed. I mean, because in some neighborhood where there's a lot of trees, you don't have nothing but leaves. I mean, bags of leaves to pick up. And, you know, a lot of people don't have any control. So I guess what they're gonna do is just leave the leaves on the ground. And you don't want that. I mean, that's safe to have the storm drain, fires. So, you know, I think we're still gonna have to work this out a little bit more in regards to the type of out of the cart trash that we're working with and what we can do with it. And you talk about a private person, fine, let's find out how much they gonna cost. We need to look at all of that before we ask.
right, well, just as I say, just keep in mind, we're just talking about option 1. We got 2
Right.
more to go through.
Right, okay,
Councilman Canali.
thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Davis, how much money are you talking about needing if you were to adopt some type of share the pennies program for convenience center at Ferris View?
I believe we were talking about between $150,000 and $200,000 a year, for the initial startup, and then I think it's $200,000 a year for the FTEs to man it. And one of the considerations that we need to consider is that these convenience centers technically require a permit from the state. So when we accept waste from offsite, we need a permit from the state of Tennessee to this. So these will be permitted facilities that will require, access restrictions. They need a bathroom, they need communication, they need utilities. It's not as easy as just finding a dead end street and putting a dumpster there. Yeah, I mean they're regulated facilities, and we have to be mindful of that. And then when we do that, also just understand that in my world, I love to put these solid waste facilities as close to the customer as possible. And not everybody wants this in their backyard. And so siting is going to be, tricky as well.
Okay. Option one, bulk collection 4 times a year, no overflow waste. So that means no yard debris.
It means if you have something that doesn't fit in your cart this week, for $10 extra a month, we will lease you a second cart.
I have 2 carts.
Yes, sir.
And I fill them up
Yes,
every
sir.
week.
Yes, sir.
4 times a year, I don't know, colleagues. I think that we're naive if we think that that's not going to increase illegal dumping.
Well, maybe to amend it or change it, but
I mean, today I sent I requested that the Public Service Corps go and remediate some illegal dumping on Hernando Road. And when they arrived this morning, there was a trailer there dumping stuff on top of it. And he called me and he said, what? And I said, if there's any license number that you can get, but I said, if they're still sitting there, call the non-emergency number, call the police. But this behavior, I don't know, until we crack down on enforcement, I don't know how we stop it. But for the people that do care about their neighborhoods, that may have a bad neighbor or a bad landlord that's got a bad renter, I feel like it's going to punish them the worst by reducing what we're going to pick up. And I have no problem with raising the fee to what it needs to be to be able to put your whole household out on the curb for $29.97 a month.
Six. $29.96 is the current rate. Single family, 1 cart, 1 garbage cart, recycle cart, and then bulk waste twice a month.
Thank you, Chairman.
bringing us home on option 1, Chairman Jones.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Davis, I'm looking at page 10.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at the revenue numbers. So to go from, we're projecting this current fiscal year to raise in revenues 75,804. We're saying if we go to this, now this fiscal year 24, are we just counting the fact that it'll be half a year that we're collecting that greater amount?
That is correct.
So the full year revenue is going to be this 98, when we have it for a full fiscal year, this 98,772.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, I go back to Councilwoman Easter Thomas's, some of her comments, and think about this from the standpoint. Somebody has a party, birthday party, big New Year's Eve party, Christmas party, opening gifts, you have a big family. How are we, and let's just say they know that this is in place now, but they have an empty lot next to them. So what we're saying, we're going to tag that empty lot. We don't know where it came from. The trash doesn't have a name on it. May not, nobody's going to be investigating and say that the trash police saying that you didn't leave this here.
Open up your bag and look for your trash.
Exactly. So
That's actually what happens with Public Works.
okay. But what I'm saying, we don't have the manpower to go around a city that's 320 some odd square miles to do that. So if we do that, how many times do we do it versus the enforcement of it, putting it on the property deck? So what we're doing is I'm dumping it on my next door, the next lot. So are there going to be tags and tags and tags on that empty lot until they find me? How are we, and that's going to play over.
How are you going to adjudicate it?
Right, so it still does not get us to the point to where we have a scenario of that empty lot that doesn't have a meter. How are we going to be having revenue to keep those lots clean? Because yes, it is people putting too much stuff on theirs, but to me, this still does not create a system to prevent, and I forget which one of my colleagues, unless somebody sets up a fence on every empty lot that we have to prevent that from happening, we still don't have a way of capturing that.
Right.
So I still go back to what would be, and I don't have police, fire, transportation, solid waste pickup. Basic services that a city should be providing its residents. I still don't have a problem, and I still haven't heard of us using general fund to subsidize this. If we do that, one thing, so what we're doing here, if we take the 30% increase at $9, and I'm moving forward a little bit, if we take the 47% increase at $14, maybe another one in here. Each one of these scenarios, though, is still increasing somebody's MLG and W bill.
That's Doug's problem.
No, but we hear it. We're still increasing somebody's MLG and W bill, and we're letting that we're letting that property owner off the hook who didn't put up a fence to keep somebody from dumping on their property. And they probably will. So until we have a problem, we have to say that it's just as important, and we don't set up a special revenue fund for police and fire. We have to subsidize a clean city through our property tax rate. None of this proposes that unless you're saying, okay, part of the way that we collect this $8.99 or this $14 is through that. Otherwise, we are jacking people's utility bills up every month by doing so, and it's not a fair system to do that. Somebody who's making $12,000 or $15,000 a year, they're paying the same amount for the same service as somebody making $500,000 a year. It is not fair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you could, may I respond?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could go back a couple of slides, Philip. I just want to show the slide number 7.
Chair, if you want to respond after, you still have the floor.
If you look at slide 7, this shows the trend of waste since 2017. It really jumped up in 2018. It's been up ever since then. So regardless of what happens with the illegal dumping on other sites or tax rates, in general, the solid waste fund is going to have an increase in order to deal with the waste that we have. So that's the first bar. The second is this option 1 was discussed as a part of the Blight and Illegal Task Force. Okay. And so this was contemplated. This is what the task force recommended, and the recommendations that were put in resolution for us to cost out. And so all of these conversations were had at that particular forum. And I just want to point out, we are very unique. We are very spoiled in terms of how we're able to put out anything at the curb, and it's been an amazing luxury for all of citizens, right? And there's a lot of communities that have this 4 times a year or these different scheduled models. I just don't want that to be lost in this conversation. There's a way we can get there. I think it will take some time and effort to do so, but we're presenting it because the committee asked for us to present it. Not that we don't support it, but
no, I understand.
I just wanted to make sure that's the point.
That's fair. Look, guys, we're just hold on. We're just discussing options, right? And so again, I hear you. Hold on. All right,
if I could share, and I apologize. We are presenting this as with the understanding that the lion's share of our customers comply, and to that is the structure of this. Those folks that you're referencing that are in violation of the ordinance, that are violating code, I would contemplate the general fund absorbing that in the increased enforcement of that comes along with the other side of this. There's an other side to all these plans.
So when you talk about the general fund supporting it, how does that play out?
It would be this is solid waste is paid for on the utility bill as a utility, as set up in the ordinance as a fee for service that's being utilized at a certain amount. If you need more, you get a second cart. You're paying $10 more. That's how the ordinance set up solid waste. Illegal dumping and blight on properties is really a function of outside of solid waste division and handled under Public Works. And I'm not gonna speak for Director Connect, but that is, in my mind, if there's a subsidy that's needed, it's done, you don't do it in the utility, you do it on the folks that are violating.
Okay, somehow we need to figure out, because I guarantee you, and only because I'm on the council do I know that Public Works is a separate division than solid waste. We have to, the average Memphian doesn't give a hoot who it is, as long as it's paid for and cleaned up. So how we get, I don't care if we're subsidizing Public Works, I don't care if we're subsidizing solid waste, we still have to have a solution. So if we have to look at that, there's a breakdown in the budget where we have debt service, we have general fund. If we have to have a city cleanup tax or fee, as long as we know that it's going to do that, people don't give a damn, because they're willing to pay it, because I am tired. We're tired of a dirty city. But I still say these propositions, what's being proposed here is still adding, without my saying anything, you all would put the burden on people's utility bills, which is an unfair way to do so. So I'm not going to shut up until you all bring me something that does not just put it on the that does not put it on the utility bill. There's a fair way to do it. It's tax fairness. But the utility bill is not the only, that's the only way that's being presented here. That's not the fair way to do it. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. All right, I've got several colleagues in the queue. I really was trying to keep this germane to option one, not a general overview. So please, Councilwoman Robinson hasn't spoken, so I'm going to recognize her first. Councilwoman Robinson.
Thank you. I just have a question on page 7. We have a chart here, and in 2017, we did something different. What did we do to make the trash that's dropped off at our city incline so much? We had to have done something legislatively or departmentally? Something happened for us to make that trajectory up that high. What happened?
In calendar year 18 and 19, that was the transition. That was the May to January 1, and then in 19, January 1 forward. In May of 18 is when we implemented the twice per month bulk model and advertised it and guaranteed it, told people we would do it and guaranteed it. And they obliged.
So that was, we made that mistake. But we did something in 2017. It started the trajectory.
And that's just the difference between 17 to 18. So,
okay.
Those are flat data points. Sorry.
Okay. So do we need to take that back? If it created that problem, can we take it back?
And again, this model contemplates that behavior change, because the twice per month guaranteeing, again, we talk about illegal dumping. Right now, effectively what it feels, I'll talk about my Philip I feel statements. I feel, while I'm not a fan of illegal dumping, and 200 illegal dump sites identified across the city is not my preferred, outcome. Right now, what we're dealing with is about 172,000 small illegal dumps that may or may not be there, that we have to drive by twice per week or twice per month, just in case you wanted to create an illegal dump in front of your house, ever so small. And that's how your neighbor sees it. That's how I see it in my neighborhood. Because when it was bulk waste collection today's my collection day, I'm a Wednesday collection. When they put those 2 bags of waste out there tomorrow, it's frustrating to me, because I know I'm going to see them. They're not coming until the first full week in June back in my neighborhood. So that's going to be effectively 3 weeks that I'm going to watch those 2 bags grow, because we said it's okay and we have little enforcement.
But you didn't answer my question.
Sure, I'm
Do I
sorry.
need to go back to January 1st, 2017?
That model was not, that model was, we get there when we get there. And then if you are frustrated that we haven't gotten there, call and within 21 days, we will get there. I do not think that is a reasonable model. I think we need to set an expectation to our customer and fund it at the level that is necessary to meet that expectation. And where we fell short in 19 was, I believe, a combination of we underestimated the ability of our customers of increasing the volume 240%, but we also failed to fully implement our enforcement to deter those bad actors that are stealing service, taking advantage of the system. And that's what it is. It's theft of service.
And I also want to point out that the world changed because it became more convenient and easy to order things and get them at your doorstep. You can get mattresses now delivered right at your doorstep. So the world just changed in terms of the amount of things that people and packaging and that people are getting. It's just right there at your fingertips now. So I think that's a part of it too. And this waste characterization study is going to help us to understand, what kinds of things we're finding in our waste streams. But I would suggest that that's a part of it too.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you.
What, he'd already spoken, but yes, Councilman Warren.
Why don't we change our ordinance to bill all the lots for trash, even if they don't have electrical outlets? And that way we can go after these people who have property and we start billing them. And if they don't pay it, then we can foreclose on it and take it back into circulation. Is there a reason
Because you can't, all right, two things. One, that's what Jones is saying is it's just a property tax increase. You can place a lien.
Okay, well, I'm saying, but
but a lien's only recognized at a sale. The only time a sale occurs is when you're delinquent on your property taxes and it goes before a tax sale. This is like everything we've ever talked about with city legal and the state of Tennessee comes back to this issue of frustration of how.
But we could do that and put a lien on it for that amount.
You can only put a lien on it for the maximum amount allowable for that. But again,
$50.
But that's exactly what I'm saying is what it's more than that. But my point to you is whether it's for $100 or $200 or whatever, most property owners, especially those of vacant properties, don't necessarily care because they don't have to realize the payment of the lien until a transaction of the property just puts a lien on the property. So there's no near-term requirement for them to clear that title or pay that lien. The only trigger
is this constitutional that's in there, or is this something that we could fix at a state level if we had legislators working on it?
I mean, I don't know that off the cuff. I mean, we're talking.
I think
property
it is
rights.
part of it is constitutional. The fine that you mentioned. The rest of it is, I believe, it is state legislature. There was a change for public nuisance. Illegal chronic dumping. So they did help us there. So it is definitely a state.
I'm just saying, as we
statute.
move forward, one of the things, like you're in a neighborhood and you've got 3 empty houses, and everybody is coming and dumping stuff on those 3 empty houses, and the people who own those houses aren't doing anything. We ought to be able to at least work with the state to some way to put some pressure on them so we can either make the houses full again or get them to pay us. But I'll let.
We're getting a little off.
Okay, I know. Okay, I'm off. I'll back up, but I still think it's not a dumb idea.
Yeah, keep Jermaine. I ain't Jermaine. I ain't Tito. I ain't Michael. It's a little Eric Mays for you there, Chairman Jones. If you don't know who the great Eric Mays is, I suggest you hop on the TikTok. All right. To option one, Councilman Canale.
How many people do we have on the reduced rate? And do we ever audit that? See if there are people receiving the reduced rate that probably shouldn't.
We are looking at that right now because it has been quite some time. The exact number I don't have the top of my head, but I can give you that.
Okay.
It's not tens of thousands. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
One, because the program's impossible to sign up for.
Yeah, but I think that it's like once you sign up, you're good forever.
I mean, most of the people that need it need it.
No,
I remember
I'm
sitting
talking
in
about
the
the property
room.
transferring
Oh, I got you.
and them still receiving that same rate.
That's a good point.
Okay.
All right, Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you. My concern when I sit here and think about possibilities, even on option one, grass clippings that occur every 2 weeks. So I'm gonna use up my 4 every 2 weeks in the summertime.
Again, I mean, I'm gonna speak a little progressive. They do make mulching mowers. There are horticulturalists that will say that if you incorporate those grass clippings back into your yard, that is more nutrients, less fertilizer that you've got to buy, better for your yard. But again, if you are someone that does your yard yourself, generates that kind of volume, the intent of the ordinance that says if you generate more waste that requires a collector to make more than one trip to the curb to collect your waste, you are required to lease an additional cart, and that would be the option that would be put forward to you.
Okay, then let's say this. I'm gonna put this is the type of conversation I've had. I'm gonna put my grass clipping in my recyclable. Y'all recycle it for me.
Again, in the yeah, and I mean we've had a deer carcass show up in a recycle cart at the Murph. Yeah, so we don't accept animal carcasses in our recycle system, but just to make that clear, right? but in the model, it proposes this 20 person group, and that would be another function of this group: education, outreach, helping not only identify violations of the collection model with respect to bulk waste, but also helping clean up our recycling, maybe definitely improve the quality of it, and maybe improve participation because people will see it as legitimate.
Okay, next question. Can I choose not to have a recycle can and just have 2 regular?
Under the current ordinance, no.
That may be an option if we go through with this process.
This is why I always joke about, like, I get questions all the time, like, do we actually recycle, right?
And that's another discussion we've had before to say that it's really not being done properly and we're not really getting advantages of the recycle
And like we
process.
try, like our house tries, and we realize, and so we've just literally gone to like cardboard and like the low hanging fruit, like cardboard and your milk carton. That's it. And so I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. We would love to encourage people to recycle because, the earth needs it.
But in reality, and that's great, and I hear you, and I believe the same thing. Doc's gonna hop on here and talk about his composting bucket, and he's right. We're all right, but like we can barely get the average citizen to properly use their trash can and waste, and now we're asking them to go from, it's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like we're asking them to go to the next level, and we haven't addressed the first. And look, maybe it's going back to, I don't know, but she's absolutely spot on in practicum, right? Like how many businesses 10 years ago were paying for blue waste bins around, and they realized they weren't getting a benefit for it, and then no one was looking, so they just kind of slowly got rid of that piece because it cost them money. I agree with you. I wish we would, I wish we could, but in practicality, it does not happen.
Right. I'm just saying, I'm with you. I'm going to keep on walking with you. We just got to figure out the best way to implement it, how to implement it. I'm sitting here thinking, maybe areas where we know we may need more, rather than charging that ridiculous $225, maybe you can charge that person $50 a month, you know, because they know we gonna need it 5 or 6 times a year, and we rather just pay it on a monthly fee rather than being hit with a larger fee when you get called. But I know we still just got to keep on. I'm excited about option 2.
Well, let's get there. Councilwoman Easter Thomas is going to close us out on option 1.
Okay. So when you are making these options, was there a model city that you all were looking at, a clean place that has good enforcement and ways to do bulk pickup and how they were changing habits, or did we just come up with it? Like, are there places where we can also look, and where have you all looked that are good model cities that are clean that we can take this and look at how they can apply?
There are. We looked at Nashville. We looked at Louisville. We looked at
those are the cleanest places.
Fort Worth. This particular model is Miami-Dade, that uses this 4 times per year model. But yes, we looked across the country at peer cities, but also places that we would, we thought we could implement a model. I mean, there are some places where we looked where they say nothing outside the cart. I didn't come to you with nothing outside the cart.
Mm-hmm. I know we got a lot to do, but I just it just doesn't feel like this option and going through the other ones haven't been well thought out for Memphians. And not saying that we still have to do things the same thing that we've been doing, because that's not what we should do, but a lot of the stuff that Councilwoman Johnson and other folks have brought up, like the what ifs and the what about, like the actual things people do, it just seems like this hasn't taken that into full consideration.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, let's move on to option 2.
Okay. So option 2 is increase our capacity collect bulk waste with an enforcement component. So again, effective date of this fee would be January 1 of 24. Service implementation by July 1 of 24. Again, no change to garbage or recycle cart collection. We would add the convenience center at Ferris View. We would repair the Bellevue transfer station, add a collection, outreach, and enforcement section to the solid waste division. Again, we would rely heavily with that enforcement group on the tagging process. This one increases our bulk collection capacity by adding bulk collection, our current bulk collection employees to that complement. What this effectively does is, right now, our garbage routes, we have a certain number of garbage routes, and then recycle routes are doubled up because of participation in recycling. So a recycle route is 2 garbage routes, and our bulk model is modeled on the recycling. So there's two garbage routes for every bulk route. What this would do would increase our complement and our number of bulk collection crews to allow there to be 1-to-1. So one garbage route, for every 1 garbage route, there would be a bulk route. This would also reduce our dependence on the unmanageable volume contractor. We didn't reduce it to the full scale of option 1, but it is reduced. This is what this looks like, $10.79. Again, their 2 convenience center plan. Right now, I mentioned only in the previous slide the 1, because that is the one that we have budgeted funding baked into this. The second convenience center is tied to a grant that we've applied for. We're very, very encouraged with the feedback we've gotten on that second convenience center, but I know that there's 2 that are planned. Includes outreach and enforcement group to lead behavior change. So again, matching the bulk collection crews to match the garbage collection routing, and reducing our dependence on the bulk waste contractor. Okay. So, yeah. And then in-house is bringing Area E. Council has asked about this repeatedly, and I wanted to make sure that we did a deeper dive into this and gave you some feedback about the option, what it would look like, and some of the limitations. So again, fee effective date, January 1, 2024. Service implementation wouldn't be until July 1 of 2029. And it's just gonna take that long to site a facility, order equipment, hire the people. So again, no change to the garbage recycle collection.
What I think the other important thing too is easy. Yeah, I think the other important thing to note too is that the fee increase doesn't actually increase it's got to come up to your point. We don't know.
Yeah, we would basically be implementing the fee increase, but running option 2 with rental equipment and purchased equipment and it would also involve us. One concern is when we bid this contract in the coming months, award it after Christmas, after the first of the year, we would be telling that vendor that you've got 5 years and we're bringing it all in-house. And so what service looks like in year 3, 4, and 5 is going to be when you've already told them they're going home.
Right.
It is.
Yeah. Can you resend the presentation you did last year when we talked about this? We've talked about this before. You did a total cost impact. It's a significant number. I think that if you can find it and resend it to the council, I think that'd be helpful.
I will, and just noting it's over a year old. It may be 2 years old at this point. Yeah.
It was impactful then. No doubt it's more expensive now, but I think it gave this gives the lead up. Yeah. That gave the
ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just further. Further considerations, we don't have the capacity to house this number of employees right now anywhere, so we would need the new facility. Identifying a location, preferably near residential near homes in Area E, would be difficult. There's uncertainty. Were we able to identify that uncertainty, what that price is for land and the availability of that land? When we looked at Bellevue, replacing Bellevue, we were looking for 25 acres zoned heavy industrial. And also one consideration that came up during that Bellevue discussion was just the idea that if you've got a 25-acre property in the location that you want it, everybody has to understand that when I take that 25 acres and put a solid waste facility there, it is not going to generate any tax revenue because I don't pay taxes. So that is just something to consider if you're taking heavy industrial and giving it to the division. Hiring is going to take at least a year to complete. There is current volatility in labor markets. We saw recently a hauling company have a labor issue, and there were significant increases in wages as a result of that. We've also seen other private haulers increase their driver wages. We have not realized that, and that is not fully contemplated because it's really kind of an unknown. But we have identified that as a risk in here because I'd be setting the rate with kind of an unknown labor market issue, and then when we bring those employees 5 years from now in-house, we're going to be competing with trying to bring those folks from a wage that they're making then into what I'm making. So at some point we have to at least match it.
Right. Again, this doesn't even contemplate the debt increase, right?
This for
equipment, et cetera, as you're purchasing along, it does.
This does contemplate the debt for the equipment.
Okay.
Trying to make sure I made all my points on here. Also, general services is going to have to outfit, so there is an impact. I know it gets billed back to me somehow, some way in the future, but they're going to have mechanics staff that shop, put the tools and the tanks and everything else in there. We did we did consider some of that, but it's not fully what GS would need to come in, and that would go under them. And again, we'd be operating the option 2 until this was implemented. This is what that rate looks like. Again, uncertainty in the future construction costs, the ability to site the facility, future wage increases, and this also, a future council would need to consider a rate increase probably in 28 or 29 once we realize what the full costs are to implement moving forward.
Yeah, and then again, colleagues, if you'll remember, we kind of ran over another high-level view on capital costs and things like that. I actually forgot about general services, but again, it's a long ramp window. Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Davis, I'm going back to the financials on option. Well, stay right there.
Okay.
Fiscal year 25, we go to 112 and pretty much stay there.
Yes, sir.
If we go back to option 2, we are at 104 in 2025 and stay there.
I noticed that when you brought up option 1 earlier.
So,
I think I need to double check that. I think that 9.3 should be a 9.8. That is
okay.
That is my bad. So I apologize.
Okay. So now going back to the in-house part, look, I'm just an observer. You do this every day. From a solid waste standpoint, bringing it in-house, do we not, well, let me ask you this. How often have we bid it out, let's just say Area E, emergency, the increase in cost there?
That contract has been bid out since I've been here. It's been held by, this is the 4th vendor in 11 years.
Okay, so the 4th, now, I know you don't have this in front of you, but over 11 years, and their area, now their bulk, how much they're picking up may have increased, but has the area that they are covering, has that increased?
No, sir.
What would you say? Okay,
and I apologize.
Okay.
Yes, I apologize. We had 2 annexations,
Okay.
the South Cordova. There has also been a de-annexation.
Okay.
I believe there has been a slight net increase, but annexation plus de-annexation.
So let me think about this. Let me ask you this, and you may not have this. That first year, what do you do we have an idea of what our costs were then versus 11 years later? Because we're dependent upon for-profit organizations to do this, have our cost for Area E, has that outpaced what our cost has been in-house over the 11-year period of time? We need that type of analysis because my thing going forward, as I've always said, colleagues, you want to fix your costs to the extent that you can. When you're dependent upon outside contractors, they are profit-driven. Many of these are publicly traded companies. They have to go with what Wall Street expects them to do. And when that contract comes up for renewal, do we want to subject ourselves to those whims? My contention, we want to if we can lock in as much as our costs as we can, and if you can bring back, where were we in-house costs 11 years ago versus the first time we went to a contractor? Where are we today, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago? That's the type of, if we haven't done that analysis, you're bringing us wrong information. You're not bringing us the information that we can make an informed decision. Have you all looked at that along those lines?
And yes.
Okay.
And just anecdotally, when I got here, Republic Services had the contract. The city provided bulk waste collection because Republic Services, it was so much cheaper for the city to provide the in-house services, and then Republic just did carts. We had bulk waste issues then as well. Inland Waste came in. They significantly underbid the
Germantown had these issues too.
yeah, and that's what we've seen. We've seen middle size, the bulk waste. What's happened in the Memphis market is the bulk waste has scared off the big guys because it is so expensive, so unpredictable. So it is right, and so the bulk waste has scared off the big guys, and you have these middle size, one mid-major, the Waste Pro's mid-major, but you see these middle size or small companies that frankly are looking to be bought, and they low bid a contract to get bought, and that's what we saw with Inland, and so what we have seen, and talking to folks in the business elsewhere. Next month, I'll be going to New York to talk about innovation in solid waste delivery. But what you're seeing
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. So, yeah. But what you've been seeing like evolve is there is a right sizing of in-house versus outsourced cost. There is a right sizing there. What we haven't seen on the city side, and this is Philip's interpretation, take it for what it will, is we haven't fully realized the labor cost. We're going to propose based on our last union agreement, 2% for this year, and we're being far outpaced by the private sector. We're like, how fast are we going to be able to catch up to the private sector market? That's the type stuff that once we do realize that wage gap reconciliation, where are we then compared? So right now what I'm seeing is, yes, you're seeing a gap being closed. What's scaring me about this model is the time, the amount I'm asking customers to pay and the time to implement, plus the, ultimately our ability to execute with choosing the site and things like that. But that's what I anticipate happening is that we will, by the time we get here, our wages will have rebounded because we're a little bit less nimble than the private sector. And as our wages rebound, then that gap is going to start growing. I don't think it's going to be what it was 11 years ago, but I do think it's going to grow.
Okay. And maybe this is my middle-aged self-talking and not thinking like a millennial from the standpoint. I just see, the city of Memphis being a more attractive employer than Republic and all of the turnover that they have there. Now, millennials, they change jobs like I change my socks. But from the standpoint, I think that we can, I just think that we might be able to, the city of Memphis may be seen as a more attractive long-term employer, and we may not necessarily, like I said, you do this every day. I'm watching this from 30,000 feet. We may not have to match the market if we provide more stability. If somebody who's saying, well, damn, I've worked for Inman and Waste Pro and when it was BFI and every other thing that's changed over those years. And so that's still a model where we can fix our costs. And if we do have an increase, by managing, because we haven't had to react to the market as the market has had to react to the market. That's it. Let's use it. That may be an advantage that we have in competing. And yeah, we don't know these uncertainties here, but it might be a better way to control those uncertainties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good thoughts. I can't wait for your New York conference. Was it President's Island? They've got an entire pneumatic trash system. Did you know that? Roosevelt Island. Yeah, it's all pneumatic.
It's unique. It's different.
It's cool. Councilwoman Johnson.
Website. Thank you. I do think we're going to have to match that market. I've talked to 2 drivers, And they said working for some of those garbage companies, services, it's not worth it. I can go and get on with other truck lines and I'm getting paid a lot more money and I don't have to deal with that type of product. So we're going to have to really do something if we're going to consider that. But this is my question, understanding the process we're going through. Are we going to make a decision on this anytime soon, or we got to make it before the budget, or what?
We don't have, if it does not, well, let me give you the politician's answer.
I need a straight answer.
You're going to get it, kind of. The answer is yes and no. If the council chooses an option to increase services, it must be paid for. If that option is to move forward by paying for it through a service fee increase, no, there is no action other than to indicate to Director Davis and the administration that we intend on supporting an increase in service of some form through that route. If the council chooses to take a bifurcated or a sole position to fund the increase in revenues and services through Chairman Jones's position, which would be a property tax increase, we would need to take action on that prior to the budget season.
Okay, I got you. I would like to know, because if we raise the fees, I think we need to be offering something other than just saying we just need this to take care of what we've been using doing all along. We're falling in the hole. No, we need to be offering something or a change of some type need to exist rather than just increasing the numbers.
Just a reminder, this fund, the reason that this came up is because this fund will be depleted by the end of next fiscal year. So our intention was to come back and ask for a fee increase so that we can continue on with the fund. The request was for us to come now.
Yeah, I pushed Chief Ryan to come now for all those reasons.
Okay, I can work with you, but I just think it's so important for everybody to understand the process, and especially citizens, because all they're going to see is an increase, and they're going to be furious. And the trash is still going to be out there, and they're going to want to know why we get to pay, was it $10 the minimum that you're recommending at this point, increase, and why nothing has changed. And that's going to be difficult, even though the fund may be deleted in some form or fashion. That's not understandable. It's just not.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Again, the reason to have, and I do appreciate Chief Ryan and Director Davis for moving to make this happen so soon, was to allow for the council to have the option to prepare to fund this in an alternative way that wasn't the solid waste fee. So doing nothing clearly is not an option. And then the question is whatever you take the service funding level through, whatever means you take it to, is what, how it's administered. And, I think it sounds like there's some more questions and discussion, but it's important to get it out now while we're going through wrap up. Because, obviously Chairman Jones has made his position very clear. And maybe it's both and. That's why I said the term bifurcated. Maybe it's part service level or fee level, and maybe it's part taking 2 cents off the tax rate. I don't know, but it was important to get the information to council members to give them the time to think through it. And honestly, if need be, again, the reason I mentioned our timeline, if members want the opportunity to have neighborhood meetings to discuss it, they should be afforded that opportunity before we have to vote on the 24th. And I think this gives you time to try and arrange that if you want to. So, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, did you have anything else? Dr. Warren.
As we're looking forward and thinking about the possibility of moving this in-house, what is the option of potentially purchasing the company, their equipment, their sites, offering contracts to their employees over a period of time so we can actually take what's present there and move forward? Is there any appetite in the industry for someone who might want to sell us that so we don't have to go buying things from scratch and we can actually gradually move over? Has that ever been done before? Is that an option? Or would it cost more or less?
I don't know what that price would be. I do know I'm not the HR person, but I know their rules about just assigning people jobs. There might be some civil service issue.
But I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out
yeah.
how, if
No.
we decided we wanted to do it, you could find your employees, you could find your equipment, and you could have it
Yeah.
happen. And, you know, it may be impossible, but I don't think it costs you anything to ask.
I mean, I think, and again, this is just me speculating. I don't know about the labor market, but on the equipment side, I don't think that heavy equipment, even in the solid waste area, is immune to supply chain issues and what's going on out there. So if I were, it's kind of like the used car game. It's for if you want something from me that I need desperately. I mean, it may be
right. And you know, these acquisitions get hairy. I mean, you got to, like, when you're buying, this is a much larger company than what is here locally. And so if we're buying 27 trucks, we need VIN numbers and things like that, because we will get the 27 trucks from all over the country that they were getting ready to delete out of their fleet. I mean, yeah, I mean, it gets really complicated, and companies get burned on that. That's, you know, some of the stuff that I've heard in the past is, like, when we had transfers over of ownership in these companies, well, you know, the trucks that they left us were the ones that they didn't need in Ohio. Yeah, so.
we're just not in the habit of, you know, being in the mergers and acquisitions of private assets like that, and that's the hard part. And then again, to the point, buying used equipment means Antonio has to service it, and he already has a problem, you know.
And their facility where they run their hauling company is in Marshall County, Mississippi.
Perfect. All right, lots to think about. Thank you for the hard work in getting us the information. I have a sneaking suspicion that we may put this in Smiley's committee. If there are any follow-up questions, we can always bring it back in another wrap-up session. Yeah. Oh yeah, when do you go on?
No, the 13th, I will be in New York. So.
Okay. Where are you staying? We following that city policy?
I am following the city policy.
Watch it. Check behind me.
Staying in the train station.
Nice. At the Grand Hyatt there?
Right. Got an alarm to put more quarters in.
All right. Thank you for the hard work that went into it. I know that, and again, I think the council also understands, just to be fair, there's no perfect solution until communities and individuals decide to be responsible, and we can't control everything. We're trying to catch as much as we can, as reasonably as we can. And so I wish there were a one-size-fits-all. My only, I guess, final question, or thought is you mentioned large cities, like Louisville would be, I think, akin to us, but I am curious in your research what cities of our size were doing. And we can have that offline, but I'd be kind of curious to know, like, the Birminghams. I mean, you mentioned Fort Worth, but I'd be more curious to know what, like, Plano was doing, even though there's still like 2 million people. But what's some of the smaller 1 million to 1.2 million populations are doing? Jacksonville, maybe. I don't know, but I am curious to know, because they're going to have the same tax base. Cities that are having similar holistic issues that we are, right? Same socioeconomic demographic.
And there's on that tax issue, there's a legal, geologist, not a lawyer. There's the legal issue of user fees versus taxes, and then applying services and whether or not you can.
It's what we call a fee and not a tax. We don't have the ability to
to
have a privilege tax. But we do. But it is. All right. Thank you, Director Davis.
Thank you. Colleagues,
we have time. Chairman Smiley, or Vice Chairman Smiley, I'm not promoting you yet, has a resolution to be discussed. Here is my request, even though I'm probably the biggest talker in the group. Today is my anniversary, and I would love to get out of here. Yes, I'm as surprised that she's still around as you are. We've been together 11 years. Yeah, so, yeah. So,
situation over here. So, I mean, what are we talking about?
I think it's 90 days.
Is there a recall provision?
No. Well, here's all I'm saying is, we spent more time on solid waste than I thought we were going to. What I'd like to do is talk about this, and then the other thing, before we get into JB's resolution, does everybody want to come back? Here's where I'm at. We've got, tomorrow. We're on the schedule for wrap up tomorrow, but there are several things that are still outstanding from the administration. I don't know that we're going to be able to have a meeting, and some council members. I'm happy to come back tomorrow as we're scheduled, but Chief Ford's still out of town. We're still waiting on some more information. Do you want to come back? I would like to go do next week, Wednesday, because it's Memorial Day, if that works for everyone. Okay, in the meantime, please look through this. Where's the wish list? Yeah.
Everybody got the wish?
Half of them are admin things that Brianna is going to follow up on, but there are some city council things that are like a home repair. Like, I don't want to call them arbitrary, but there are numbers in which council members need to determine what they think a reasonable annual contribution would be, right? Like, Chairman or Councilman Canale threw out $10 million a year for affordable housing. That wasn't rock. So, right. So the point is like Aging Commission doesn't have a number, Councilwoman Rob. So, yeah, please do, because I think what I'd like to do, and here's what I've asked her to do when you see it, is we've got, and I'll kind of work with her, but what I'd like to do is total it up into subtotals of public safety, affordable housing, community services, youth services, and then a grand total so that we can kind of start to break it down and wrap your head around it. But we can't finish that until we're done with our stuff, and then we've got to communicate to the administration. And I held that back because I wanted to talk to her, but we're going to get that information to you guys. So I think you guys are good for today if you want to head on out. Robert has to stay, though. I'm just kidding. You're good.
Ready.
All right. The floor belongs to the vice chairman.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to do your wife proud and let you get out of here in about 6 or 7 minutes.
I thought you said 6 or 7 o'clock.
Oh, so
I heard you in there.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. All right, so colleagues, if your eyes are like mine, you probably want to need to look at the big screen. What you have before you is the organization chart. This is a new chart. This is the legislative division. All right, so I'm going to start this conversation off by saying there's nothing this body has to do today. This is, just giving you an overview of what the proposal is. I know you've had this in your email. May have been some changes as we work through the kinks of it. We've been talking about, what reorganization will look like at least for a year and a half. We added new roles. We added new responsibilities, and we're still trying to figure it out. So this is my attempt, along with some amazing staff, to remedy. So the only thing that this council would do would be at the next council meeting to vote on a resolution to create the new position that I'm going to talk about today. All right, the organization chart, City of Memphis, of course, the Memphis City Council. Right under the Memphis City Council, you have the chairperson. The chairperson would directly oversee the council attorney. Hope Attorney Wade is listening. I'm sure he is not. So Attorney Wade has been, in my opinion, he's been a very vital part of the city council office. He has a wealth of knowledge. And then Councilwoman Easter Thomas said this once before, institutional knowledge, we don't want to lose that institutional knowledge. So what I'm proposing is we assign an assistant council attorney to basically serve as Alan Wade's assistant attorney. One, to soak in that knowledge, but also to make sure the council is protected if and when Alan Wade actually goes to golf full time. We need to make sure that
it's prudent.
We need to make sure all the knowledge that he has doesn't leave when he decides to walk out this office. Yep. We have to protect this body. It's the most important thing. And it takes time to learn when you're talking about the years of knowledge that he has. If you saw him in court, as he walked through the history of the city of Memphis, it's probably the best oratory arguments I've seen in quite some time. I watch a lot of litigators, and we need someone to fill in that gap. If and when he retires, please don't retire soon. That's my ex. Also, there is, instead of having a chief of staff, the chief of staff position will now be called the chief administrative officer. There's a lot of added duties to that, and I'm going to talk through those added duties real quick. If I can find my paper. Okay, he's on the back sheet. So the added duties as to what used to be the chief of staff will be the chief administrative officer. The chief administrative officer, the new added duties will be procurement, division budgeting, and strategic planning, meetings, that's not new duties. Employee training and development, website and technology management, oversight of the council office communication, social media pages. And then the deputy chief administrative officer will have a new duty as well, which is human resources business partner for the division, which means payroll, PTO, training, professional development, performances, and review. All right, so those are, they speak for themselves as it relates to the chief administrative officer and the deputy chief officer. The role that is, I guess, what we should spend some time thinking about and looking at is the creation of what will now be called the legislative analyst. The next slide. All right, so what you have before you, what you see on the screen is this. It is a comparison between what now is called
God, I cannot read this.
I know, that's why you got a piece of paper. Y'all,
Yeah, but you see
if you have this one, this is the one you want to hold. This one here.
Okay.
This one here. Don't look at the small writing. We can't read it. We can't read it at all. Especially if eyesight like mine. All right. So staff roles and responsibilities. So one, I'm just gonna read it. The restructure aims to address the following structural and operational problems within the office. We all know we have issues, but our job is to do what we can to alleviate some of the issues within the office. We have too many duplicative roles and responsibilities leading to internal confusion and office inefficiency. I think Councilman Carlisle will use a word, I won't say it, imbalance between roles and responsibilities. And I think something that almost every council member has said at this point, there is no single council member responsible for full-time coverage of the district. And we always spend a lot of time talking about the importance of having dedicated staff. Right now, what we're seeing is staff being split between several different members, and sometimes some members get the short end of the stick. And I don't think that's fair to the people who send us emails. I don't think that's fair to the people who call us when, one particular staff member is being pulled on by, I talk about myself being pulled on by Councilman J.B. Smiley a lot, and another district, and Councilwoman Robinson a lot, or the chair to my left. We do a lot of work, and we do a lot of different things. Or Councilman Ford, who does really good constituent service, probably some of the best I've ever seen. We need staff dedicated to making sure the responsibilities or the obligations of the people are being met. So if you look at the sheet that I was holding up, the sheet that talks about all of the roles that are being duplicated by executive assistants and research analysts, it's essentially the same job with added responsibilities. What we're gonna do here, what the proposal is, to take the research analyst position and the executive assistant position and combine them. Now, when we combine them, we have what I believe to be, you can go to the next page. What I believe to be, you can go to the next slide. So talk about the benefits to the staff. So we have clarity in roles, duties and accountability, professional development and growth, increased compensation. We spend a lot of time this entire budget talking about we need to provide more funding for council attorney, provide more funding for a lot of different positions. But guess what we forgot about? Our staff. Our staff. I tell people we have a lot of, we see staff talking about shoulders of money. Okay. We have we have some of the best staff in the world, and I tell people that all the time, but we should compensate them, but also make sure we're doing our job to make sure our staff is being held accountable, not simply in positions. Benefits to council members, clarity in roles. One point of contact, instead of having to contact this person or this staff, but one point of contact. And what I believe to be very important to every single council member here, because, talk about Councilwoman Issa Thomas, she always talk about her district. Talk about Councilman Ford always talks about his district, and no one talks about that district more than Councilwoman Patrice Robinson. She spends a lot of time talking about, well, what about my district? What this will do is full-time coverage of the district, giving further opportunity for additional legislation, initiatives, and events. We have one dedicated person per staff, per district. I think it's very important. And benefits to the management. Same thing, clarity in roles, duties, accountability, professional development, growth, with additional office staff, more time for staff development and office-wide initiatives. Next slide. So here, what you see is the job descriptions. I'm going to briefly read the legislative analyst position one more time. Well, for the first time. Assigned to work with one council member. The legislative analyst will assume all prior executive assistants and research analyst responsibilities for the member they work with. In a typical day, a legislative analyst may prepare committee items, attend a community meeting on behalf of a council member, schedule a public appearance, respond to constituent concerns that are emailed or called in office. Right now, what we have is our research analysts are already picking up calls, sending emails, same thing with the executive assistants. But the difference is that's being split over 3 members, and oftentimes, I think we've all experienced, sometimes things fall between the crack because we have the duplicative roles. And then I think this will make, I'm gonna pick on her a little bit because she can take it. This will make Brianna very happy. Office and grants administrator, I think she's praising God right now. Create a role specifically for office and grants administrator. We spent a considerable time talking about grants, and we have a legislative analyst assigned to multiple people who also does grants. To be honest with you, that is unfair to any particular staff person. Then also has an extremely active council person. We have to do better, and we do better by creating positions or putting people in a position to succeed, not to fail. All right, so briefly touch on it. Works with the office administration to fill administrative duties such as accounts payable, petty cash, travel, coordinating, catering, work orders, procurement, and responsible for program management of the council community grant program. That is in bold letters because we know how much time that takes and how important it is to each individual council member. And then we have a receptionist. Primary contact for the main office telephone line, assists constituents with the concerns, and is available to greet members of the public entering the office. Works alongside the office and grants administrator on office administrative tasks as assigned. Same thing, chief security officer is the same. And that's essentially it. And the last thing that Councilman Jones will not allow us to get out of here without briefly touching on is the money. The money matters. So when we talk about, making our staff feel wanted and showing them that we appreciate their hard work on behalf of the citizens of Memphis, what you see here is instead of, I think a base salary for what is a legislative analyst is between 80, not legislative, research analyst is about 65,000. What you see here is a base salary of 80,000. That's a significant increase because there were plus what Councilman Carlisle said.
It'd be 84 plus bennies. So he's showing just hard cash. Which if you want to, in case you want to do the math, you can throw in about a 30% benefit factor.
Absolutely. So with the increased salary, we also there were increased responsibilities because working for one particular council member, I'm gonna talk about JB Smiley. If you're working for me, I always have ideas. Sometimes they're bad, and sometimes people tell me, and my staff has to tell me, this is not a good idea. Sometimes, scheduling, because I show up in community a lot, talking to people, sending emails, coming with resolutions, or if you're working for Councilwoman Robinson, you're going to go to Whitehaven. You're going to go to those community meetings, and you're going to be present. So working with each individual council member comes with their own sets of challenges, but our staff is ready to meet those challenges, but we have to compensate them. We can't spend an entire budget season talking about we need to do more for other divisions, and we're doing the bare minimum for ours. We need to put our division in a position to succeed. We set the model, and this gives an opportunity to set the model. I think when we went through the numbers, we spoke to HR, we spoke to our attorney. When we went through the numbers, I think we would need an additional $400,000 to create the additional positions, but also to provide the raises for our staff. And we're gonna go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the numbers one more time to make sure that everybody is receiving the appropriate love they need to receive.
I can tell you now by looking at it, they would be going up.
Everybody's going up. So essentially every salary is going up, but I'm committed to the process. I'm going to go through it again with staff to make sure that we're putting people in a better position because we're going to ask more of them. If we're going to ask more of them, we should pay them for what we're going to ask them for. I think that's pretty much it. And again, thank you.
We're going to hear this in committee.
Absolutely. So thank you for allowing me to talk through this, but also there's nothing for us to do today. I want to repeat, there's nothing for us to do today. I want you to take some time to look at this, look at, what's better about it. And if there's some any feedback about how we can make this better, I'm all ears. We're all ears to make it happen. Also, nothing for us to do today. The only thing for us to do today is, the only thing for us to do going forward. We can do it because the reason that we have to do a resolution as opposed to anything else, I'm gonna be Attorney Wade for 2 seconds. I'm taking this moment in, y'all. So, so there's an ordinance on the books that said, in order to create a position, the chairperson has to deem it necessary. Councilman Jones, in his style of serving as chair, is an excellent model, his position is the will of the body. So if I understand the law correctly, the chair can do it by himself without consulting us. But the way the chair serves as chair, he says, is always the will of the body. So ultimately, the only thing that has to be done, or that will ultimately be before this body, is whether we deem it necessary to create new positions. If we create the new positions, then we can determine how this goes or whether it goes or not. And that is all. Thank you for entertaining me. And Councilman Carlock can go do we.
Well done, Vice Chairman Smiley. This has been great. We've been, when I first took over as personnel chair, I sat down with Brooke Hyman at the time and we looked at ways that the council was evolving to meet an evolving citizen base. And this is just one more step, especially that office administrator is a person that, when we lost Judy, we lost a ton of institutional knowledge about our operations, and Liza and others had to pick up the slack on the fly. So having somebody that can be basically an ops manager is very, very helpful to the business of the council that will go on, whether members are here or not, that I think is helpful. If other members have other proposals, I know last time I kind of purposely shut the conversation down, but Vice Chairman Smiley has made a proposal. If you have another proposal, you are entitled to bring that. I'm going to tell you as the budget chair, I need you to bring it by the 13th so we can discuss it, or it's probably going to be really hard. So whatever that may be, whatever structure, whatever salary, please bring it by the 13th so we can debate them together and kind of move on. But I appreciate you putting the time and thought into it. Just to reiterate, we are not going to meet tomorrow. We are going to reconvene on the 13th of Wednesday. Please come Wednesday, really ready to go on. I took a quick peek at our wish list.
It's a lot. Give it to us.
A lot of kids love Santa. But be prepared to have some hard discussions. The beautiful thing is, I think from my perspective, is this body's been adamant and hasn't backed down for the things that are important to them. But in reality, at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to compromise with each other, how to come to an agreement, hopefully, not 7-6, but 13-0, that these are the priorities and these are the things we're willing to do. And if it has to be some cuts, or if it has to be an increase in cuts, or it's all increased, we've just got to be prepared to do that. So please enjoy your Memorial Day holiday weekend with your family and friends. Please come ready on Wednesday to get after it. And then we'll have Chief Ford back, I believe, by then as well. And then lastly, please don't feel like we have to get it all done on Wednesday either. My intention is to go and meet every few days as your schedules allow, shorter amounts of time, so that we've got time to get it right, that we're ready to go by the 24th. But thank you to you all. Thank you to staff, and thank you to the administration for the presentations. And we look forward to this these next few weeks.
Does Chief Ryan know who Eric Mays is now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know.
Did I say that? No, I'm talking about that bring it on June 13th for that council meeting. All right, we are adjourned.
So wait, just to clarify, we're not having any other committee meetings next week or
No,
the week
I'm
after?
sorry, that's my fault. We are going to meet May 31st at 3:30 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
We are going to reconvene on May 30th. And
Okay.
if that does not work for any member, please let Brianna know, and I will try and make sure that we make wrap up as accessible to everybody as possible. It's really important to me, and I'm sure everybody else, that everyone's weighing in.
So with that though, are you saying bring proposals on the 13th or the 31st?
Bring them on the 31st.
Okay.
And then my plan for the 31st generally was to go over the wish list and have more of a dialogue.
Gotcha.
But if we get to a point we can start voting, that's fine by me.
Okay.
My hope is that we end up voting on it more like we did the ARPA as a package.
Okay.
Now some things may have to come down to a line item vote, right? But I'm hoping that we can start to come to some compromises of, we wanted to do 3 million here, but it needs to be $1 million because we want to do 8 million here. I mean, I don't think, looking at the number, it's so large. I could be wrong. I mean, it's large, Jonesy. So I don't know that we're going to get there all the way with the full wish list, is I guess my point.
Okay.
So
But I was more so just clarifying the dates because
yes, that's my fault.
The 13th and
come the 31st ready to talk about the wish list and put in your thoughts, and then starting the 31st and into the 13th, we'll start getting into the ratifying of the wish list. But really, and then also you've got the follow-up request. If there are things that you have not heard from the administration on,